Hey mums, welcome back to Beanstalk Mums, Real Talk for Single Mums podcast. Today I'm chatting with Sasha Eburne, a mum and a coach who's been through burnout and has come out the other side with real practical advice on letting go of the pressure and the need to do it all and creating a life and business that truly fits. Sasha is here to share her down-to-earth tools that can help any mums that are feeling overwhelmed or stuck find a way forward. So welcome, Sasha. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we jump in, could you tell me a little bit more about your story?
Yeah, so back in 2019, I decided to go on the journey to become a solo mum. I hadn't yet met the right guy, and I had built a 25-year career in hospitality, hotels and events. And then COVID happened. It was very much a casualty of COVID and thought that was it. My entire 25 years of career came crashing down, didn't know what I was going to do, and jumped in and out of a few different jobs. And I randomly went and met up with an old colleague from a hotel industry, and she told me that she was running her own business as a virtual assistant. And then I decided to try it, and that kind of changed everything for me. And it was only 4 months into that business that I decided that I'd stumbled across quite a unique business model, and I wanted to share that with other women. So that's when I started coaching. And I guess fast forward, we're in our 5th year now. I live and breathe coaching other women, other mums to not only leave their 9 to 5, but actually really step in and become that CEO and run that business and kind of make that their lives moving forward.
Wow, that is brilliant. I love how you utilize that, the COVID situation, which hit all of us hard, and was able to sort of pivot that around to something that really benefited you. And as a single mum myself, I feel that, being able to leave that 9 to 5 probably opened up doors to be able to spend more time with your child. But there would be that almost pressure to perform. I know myself starting up my own business, there is so much that goes on into putting a business together. How, without even recognizing the fact that you're in overwhelm and in this burnout stage, from your experience, what are some of the subtle signs mum should watch out for when they do embark on a endeavor of either setting up their own business or even in just everyday single mothering roles?
Yeah, I think it's that whole you've got to ask for help. And I think I learned that. Well, I still learn that every day. People are like, it's okay to ask for help. And it's one thing that I always tell my 6-year-old. She doesn't like to ask for help. She likes to do everything herself. So I wonder where she gets it from. But really, that it's actually a sign of strength to ask for help, to get support. And, I've learned to get support not only in my business, but also in my personal life. And rather doing the stuff in your personal life that, let's be honest, we don't like doing, could I actually redirect that energy? Or on a weekend, do I want to spend my entire weekend cleaning the house? Whereas I could get somebody to come in on Friday, clean the house for me so that I could spend the entire weekend with my daughter. So I think really be okay to ask for help. And I think at the beginning, when we're starting to navigate what we can ask for help and what we can't ask for help, we think that it's going to be expensive, or we think that, especially as mums or single mums, we're like, oh, that sounds bougie. But actually, when I looked into it, I'm just like, some of these services or some of this help that you can get is actually not that expensive. And when I kind of started exploring them, I was just like, I have to share this with every other mum, because why would you spend all weekend doing your laundry when, for I think one huge big bag of laundry is only like $65. And I'm like, that's not that much, considering if you put so much more emphasis on the time that you want to spend with your children, and things like that. So really definitely being vulnerable, asking for help, and being okay with saying, I'm not okay. And I think that's where I see the sides of they're just trying to do it all, or there's so much pride to be like, no, I've got it, I don't need help. So it's just kind of that sugarcoating it as well. So kind of really realizing that and kind of painting that picture and giving them permission to be okay with not being okay, or giving them permission to ask for help.
Absolutely. I recently did an interview with a really good mentor and mediator, and he was saying the same thing, that there's courage in being able to ask for help. And also recognizing, you've mentioned paid assistance there. Some mums are potentially not in that financial demographic where they can spare that, but even not investing in financially in that assistance, but reaching out and saying, pairing up with another fellow single mum or otherwise and saying, look, can we do some child minding together, and I will do this for you, and do like a barter or a swap or something. Getting creative, would be a great way to do that too, that reaching out for help.
Yeah, even call another mum and say, basket over, bring your washing basket over and a bottle of wine and the kids can play.
Absolutely, yes. I think that would be more up my alley.
Yeah.
But how would you recognize that you're actually becoming overwhelmed and burnt out? Because I suppose when you are in the role of it every day, it just pull it up and, tuck it in, so to speak, and you just carry on without necessarily noticing that there is something falling apart and that you should be maybe looking at slowing down.
Yeah, what I really try to emphasize for everybody is the self-care component, because we always put everybody else first. We put our business first, or our job, or our family. And I think if there is really no space in there for you, that's when you're probably close to it. And you might not recognize it, but it's really important to have, really clear, clean mind, so that we can show up actually wholeheartedly in all the other aspects of our business. So if you speak to somebody and you're like, okay, when do you have you time? When do you actually do something for you? And, very much like you said, it doesn't have to cost money, but are you going out there and walking? Or are you going in, if you can invest in getting a massage or something, what are you doing for you, going in fresh air? And if there is none of that, I guarantee you that person is on struggle street. They might just not realize it. So really kind of encouraging them to do things that light them up, because at the end of the day, and this is one big lesson that I learned, is happy mum, happy baby.
Absolutely.
Because if we are stressed, they are going to be stressed. So they feed off our energy so much. And it's super, super important.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you there. And that gets carried across on so many different platforms and, different modalities, whether it's through the legal advice or the mediators or lifestyle coach or counseling. Everyone seems to be pointing to that same thing, that if you are struggling, if your cup is not full, you cannot, allow others to drink from it. Right. So very valid point there. What about, I imagine, rebuilding after a burnout? So you've had a situation where you've pushed yourself to the limits and you realize that, I just can't go any further. That rebuilding would be quite difficult. What practical steps do you think mums could start to take to restore that energy and well-being, especially if they feel their time and resources are limited?
Yeah, I think that the time, we need to be a little bit more like positive frame around time, because I think we all think that there's this list and this list has to get done. But actually be okay with the list as a mum, the list as a business owner, or the list as an employee. There's always going to be a list. And it's actually okay to get to the end of the day and not have it all done, and be okay with that. And I always suggest to pick maybe 2 or 3 things off of the list, so that you can actually, we break it down, chunk size, bite size, whatever it is, to be like, okay, well, that's actually achievable. Because as women in general, we have very high expectations of ourselves, and we will put all of this stuff in the list to be like, this is why my day is going to be a success. But actually, if we sit down and look at it, is that actually realistic? The answer is always going to be no. So picking 1 or 2 things and being okay with that's going to be on another list, or that's going to be in a future list. And I think sometimes we always want that shortcut. We want it to happen now. But actually, if we do a couple of things every single day, by the time we get to the end of the year, we've done, 365 things, or double that. Because what's worse is we don't do anything because we're like, oh, it's too hard, it's too much. And then we just don't do anything. We sit in this inaction. So just chip away at it and be okay with slow and steady is actually so much more. And, if we look at it, we do actually have a lot of time. We have so many more years, and we're still stuck here in this fight or flight in the present. It's just like, let's just space it out. Let's actually just enjoy the roses, see where we're going. And you'll actually, on reflection, see how much that you actually get to achieve by actually going at things a little bit slower, because then you can actually do them properly. You're not going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to get the results that you need over time. But we just set this unrealistic expectation that it has to be done yesterday.
I can so relate to what you're saying, and I'm sure many mums listening would be too. I often find I do that myself. And whereas in the past, I applied pressure at the end of the day and saw how many things were still left. These days I kind of go, and so what? That simple phrase allows me just to go, well, okay, it's not done. Who died? Nobody. What's the worst case scenario now that it's 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock and these things are still left on my list? They just get pushed back till tomorrow. Yeah. And it's almost once that sort of penny drops, it's such a relief, because we do have this pressure to do it all. It's almost like this expectation, whether it stems from society, our parents, or wherever it comes from. It is real, and it can be really heavy. So I think, when you realize that, it becomes such a relief that, you don't have to do it all.
No.
It's not always easy. And I wonder whether in your tool belt you would have any sort of mindset shifts or strategies that can help draw a bridge from that, oh, it's got to be all done, to no, I actually have, I can let go of this. Is there any specific tools that a mum can utilize?
Yeah. Really, I think the most simplest and the best one is reflection. Is rather at the end of the day, rather than looking at what you haven't done, actually look at what you have achieved, and to be like, actually, I did this, this, and this. This is great, and embrace it, and actually be like, well, actually, that's so much further along than I was the previous day. So that's a win. And in that moment, just acknowledge that and be okay with that. And that is the positivity of it, rather than the going into it with the lack mindset, to be like, I didn't do that, I did do that. Rather be like, yeah, good on me. I actually managed to get those things done today. Today was a good day. And I think the more positive we have in reflections, and if we continue that behavior can actually roll into something more, because we gradually going to become a happier person, because we're always going to be looking at the good at things rather than the negative at things.
That is so brilliant. I've always, well, not always, but for a little while, and this is something that I've talked to some friends recently about, creating, rather than having like a to-do list that you then cross off, potentially just tick things off, and you have it in a notebook, so that at the end of the month, for example, and then 3 months and then a year, but start small initially.
Yeah.
You actually flip back and you see what you've actually achieved. That reflection of positive achievement, rather, like you're saying, like chasing that ultimate goal that you keep moving with, adding the next thing to the list.
Yeah.
So having, like you're saying, reflecting on what you've actually done is just, it feeds the soul. It really does make you happier and a lot more motivated, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. I wonder too, if potentially would setting clear boundaries also contribute to reclaiming some of that freedom?
100%. What I see is everyone wants to say yes to everybody else. There's very much, and most of us have it, it's a people pleaser in us. And we're always taught, put everybody first. I mean, I was even taught down to the littlest thing. You sign off a birthday card, and I was always taught to put myself last. And yes. I think that mindset carries through to our life. We always put ourselves last, but actually we have to put ourselves first. I mean, in an airplane, you're going to put your own mask on first. So like they got it right, because you have to save yourself so you can be there to save other people. But the people please us, and this is what I deal with my clients all the time. Like, oh, but I just want to say yes, or it's good money, so I'm just going to take it. And we're always kind of settling. Rather than actually, well, could you not hold your boundaries, or to be like, well, I can do that project for you. However, the time frame for me to start that project is in 3 weeks' time, rather than, I could fit it in now to keep them happy, but actually they still also could have been happy starting in 3 weeks. We just don't know. So we need to be having more open conversations and asking questions to be like, well, would a 3-week time frame be suitable for your needs? Like actually asking rather than assuming, because then we can protect our timing and our barriers. And sometimes I think we need to protect them so much more because of the time factor, in terms of everything takes longer than what we think it is. So
it just
giving us that buffer to be like, I think it's going to be 3 weeks, and you could still go back to them in a week to 2 weeks to be like, actually, I have some time now. I'm ready. Would you like to start now? Whereas you want to be able to have that choice and that flexibility of freedom of time, because you might have the time, but you might want to go and choose doing something else. And that's where I think it comes down to. It's having the choice of what we do with our time, rather than always people pleasing, saying yes, 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 and then not leaving any time for ourselves. So yeah, definitely boundaries are huge in terms of always try not to answer in the moment, because sometimes that people pleaser still comes back, and I'll be like, I'm going to think about it and come back to you. And I sit and think about it a little bit longer, and then I think, actually, no, I'm going to put some boundaries in place, or I'm going to give myself some more time. So I think sometimes it's just that knee-jerk reaction that we go into people pleasing.
What I'm hearing there is that communication, being confident enough to sort of step up and assert those boundaries through communication.
Yes.
So then you're not necessarily saying no to the opportunity, or no to, if there is an aspect of you, which I think many women have been brought up with this, like you're saying, the pleasing syndrome, from anything, just, having, like you said, signing off on their birthday card to serving other people. So to be opening up that conversation, you're still kind of allowing yourself to say yes.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily saying no to everything, but you're saying yes on your own terms.
Correct.
Aren't you?
Yeah, taking back that flexibility of choice.
And so if there are mums that are balancing parenting and entrepreneurship, are there any habits or routines that you have found to be helpful in maintaining that ability to build up that courage and to maintain focus and that well-being?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to live in the lines of you have to work between 9 and 5. So that gives me that flexibility and freedom. And I do work on the weekends, and I'm quite vocal about that even on social media, because a lot of people are like, I feel sorry for you, you're working on a weekend. I'm like, I don't feel sorry for me. Like, it's a privilege that I get to choose when I want to. So, if I choose to finish at 2:00 every single day, that is my choice. And I know that sometimes if we are in a busy period, that I might go and pick up some extra hours on the weekend to ensure that the business keeps on moving. But I also have really big goals. So I work every single day, but I absolutely love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. But by having that flexibility over the 7 days, I'm not conditioned to only working between the certain hours. I just plan my day. So I do things like this, and I do calls like this when my daughter is at school. And then I might pick up some work after she goes to sleep that doesn't require me to be on camera. And that's just how I spread out my day, and that's how I choose to work. And I like to choose to work when my energies are high, so I get a bit of a second wind after dinner, so I might do some work there. But what it also allows us to do is we travel a lot. And having the flexibility of traveling when you're running a business is because the business still operates, because I can work across 7 days. I can get up in the morning, do a couple of hours before we go to breakfast, and we can go and enjoy an entire day. We just came back from spending 5 weeks in Bali. And I think not being conditioned to working that five days, or having the guilt of working on the weekend, it kind of takes away any of those pressures to be like, you have to get it all done between those school hours, Monday to Friday. And I think because society tells us that we shouldn't work when our kids are at home, and society tells us we should only work during school hours. And I think we're so conditioned to try to conform to those rules instead of making up our own rules, and it puts on so much extra pressure on us. And if we are an entrepreneur and we have big goals, there are different ways that we need to live our lives, because if you want to take your business to a certain level and you want to have more impact in it, sometimes the 9 to 2 that they're at school, it's not going to work. So find a routine and a business model that's going to work for you, and be okay with that. And I don't let any of the outsiders guilt or shame me into being like, oh my God, you have to work on weekends. Because I'm like, it's great that I get to work on weekends because I choose to do that. That is my choice, and I love it. So I think definitely trying not to conform to society about what everyone's going to say about when and how you work is really important. So find the way that works for you.
Absolutely. So they're creating that routine that really suits you and works with you and your family. I 100% agree with that. And I sort of raise my eyebrows when you say, people say, oh, you work on the weekends, because I get similar comments. But then you might have a Tuesday or a Wednesday off, or you might have a whole week off, where as long you know that you have put things in place, that everything won't go crumbling down. So then you are basically become the true authority within your life.
Yeah.
With that comes that responsibility of juggling and making sure that you do keep yourself healthy, and that self-care aspect kicks in. But yes, that balancing act is so important, and setting it up as a routine that fits in your and your child's and your life is so important, especially when you're chasing those big dreams.
Yeah.
How do you find, or what would you advise to mums that do go into business and they do create this habits, the routine rather, and they're chasing this big dream. I don't know about you, but sometimes it consumes me and it almost takes over everything else I'm doing. So even though I've got these routines and structures in place, they sometimes get pushed by the wayside for the purpose of the achievement of this great big goal. So how do you stay connected to what truly matters, and, how do you balance everything?
So there's a few things in that. Is I always realize that my goals as an entrepreneur will just keep on pivoting. We're not going to get to this one spot to be like, we've made it, we can just stop now. It just doesn't happen. It's not in my DNA. So being okay with there's always going to be that something that I'm chasing. And irrespective of revenue, because we know revenue will highlight everything else, but what it comes down to is the results of my life. And I know a lot of people might think this is different, but I share them with my daughter. I know that she is only 6, but I think there is so much power in actually sharing how much of a difference it will make in the world. And the fact that, okay, yeah, I worked today, but actually we helped this client actually make so much money in their business that they could spend time with their family. And I bring her in on that and she loves it. And then she's come to both of my Bali retreats. She knows all the ladies there. She goes, oh yeah, I remember them. Can I send them a message and say congratulations? So I bring her on that journey with me and she feels a part of it. So it's not like when we were kids, it was kind of like, oh, your parents worked. They were away in a room for the entire weekend.
Yes.
The fact that she gets to see the people at the retreat, she gets to go there, she gets to meet them. And I think it's super important. So it doesn't feel like there's this disconnect that, mommy has to work. It's
wow.
Actually,
that is such a different way to approach it, but yet so it makes so much sense, especially for a single mum. And I know many mums bring, they'll go to a study nook, not a study nook, those collective places for working.
Yeah.
And the child will go into like a creche situation.
Yeah.
But you're taking this the next step forward and actually bringing her on board. Language, and developmentally, I'm sure is aligned to what she can comprehend.
Totally.
But that's almost in a way not only bridging that parent and child gap and that isolation that potentially business people in the past have had with their children, but also setting your daughter up for a really good start in life. It starts to get her to think in a different way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think sometimes we don't give kids that much credit. And I think there's this whole facade out there to be like, just let kids be kids. Well, actually, there's so much more that they want to be, and are we actually keeping them playing small? Like, if she doesn't want to know about it, she won't be involved or show any interest, and then we move on to something else, but she has shown interest in it. And I've done a lot of research into like different types of alternative schools. And like even in America, there are schools where you go and you're learnt by AI, and the AI changes the way that the children grow, but then they actually do life skills and they're learning how to do businesses in primary schools. And I think that there's so much more that our kids could actually learn to come into this world with so much more knowledge. And I think with the way that technology and AI is going, they have to have that information so young, because it's moving so fast. And if we keep on teaching them the way that the school systems were created well beyond the 50s, that they're just going to be left behind and coming into this new age world. So, I'm all for bringing her in on the journey. But if she doesn't show any interest in things that I tell her, then I don't keep kind of forcing them on her. That's not what I'm like. If she shows interest in something, I am all about teaching her in a 6-year-old way, or telling her, be like, oh, this person got to go out and buy a gift for their kid and before they couldn't afford it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so age appropriate, basically.
Age appropriate. And she loves it. She loves getting involved, and she's like, oh yeah, I remember them. I remember them from Bali. So I think it's important to bring them along, and I think to build that gap between mummy has to work and mummy's going away, that she is involved and it is part of our entire lives cohesively.
So would you say that defines your success? Like, I'm trying to think, how would you encourage mums to find their own version of success that feels authentic? In your case, it's being able to involve your child and potentially, I'm guessing, all that together, so it almost becomes a lifestyle because you enjoy doing it so much. Is that the tip that you would give to other mums?
I think just find what works for you. I think really find what works for you. Find your happiness, because life is actually all about just being happy and doing what you love. And if you're doing something that it feels icky, feels out of alignment for you, then change it. And I think there's a lot of fear in changing things. A lot of us are coasting. I was having a conversation this morning with another solo mom, and she's like, oh, but some people love their 9 to 5. But, sometimes I'm very vocal about this and I don't shy away from it because I'm an open book, but I'm just like, are they? Cool. If they are, then great. But I would always encourage everyone to actually sit with it, to be like, are you actually happy? Because a lot of us, before we're actually really asked that question, we're like, oh yeah, of course I'm happy. And then if you're like, oh no, I actually thought that I'd be doing this with my life, or I'd do this for you, well, change it. So my words of advice is just find what works for you and that lights you up.
Absolutely. I think I read an article about this the other day where they were speaking to the point of when you're in something where you're comfortable. You may not like it anymore. It may not fit you anymore, but this is what you know. And this is your reality, or it has been your reality for the last 10, 20 years or whatever. And to step out of that would make you extra uncomfortable, even if it's for a minute. Even like stepping out of a shower, like your nice hot water, and you have to get out of the shower. It's going to be uncomfortable for a minute before you get warm. People avoid that like the plague, even though at the end of that uncomfortableness might be something that was way better than that hot shower that you were just in.
Yeah.
So mindset, it's such a key to long-term success. Do you have any powerful mindset tools or techniques that mums can apply and, to build that resilience and be able to step out into the uncomfortableness?
Yeah, it's probably get uncomfortable. Now, it's hard.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because what will happen is we talk about the comfort zone. We all want to stay in our comfort zone, but then we don't grow. But if we move out of this zone, we could move into the uncomfortable zone. Eventually, that then becomes the comfortable zone. And I think if you kind of paint the picture for that, they're like, so you mean the uncomfortable can become comfortable? Sure, it's like repetition. It's like when we started driving a car, it was so uncomfortable, we didn't know how to do it. And now we just do it, we zone out, we just do it. So using really basic metaphors like that to show that actually they could just become an expert. I mean, when I first did a podcast interview like this, I would be like, oh, I'm so nervous, but now it's just comfortable for me because I've been doing it for a few years. So just try different things, get outside of your comfort zone, try different things. Try not to use labels to hold you back. I hear a lot of people to be like, oh, but I'm introverted. Are you actually introverted, or have you just been told that you're introverted? So try different things, try experiences, and if you don't like them, sure, try something else. But it's all about just trying new experiences. That's why, we're human. We're here to have human experiences. So go and have other human experiences.
That is so valid, especially that labeling, because sometimes those labels don't come from outside. They come very much from inside. So it almost becomes like a crutch. I'm an introvert, therefore I cannot go out and set up my own business because I can't socialize with others. Yet there are so many businesses that you could potentially start that you don't actually have to have contact with others.
Correct.
There's always, where there's a will, there's a way, so to speak. If you really want to achieve something and you want to push through, you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're absolutely right. It's just that, sometimes we stand in our own way. And I think it's because, especially for single mums that have come out of relationships that potentially weren't very beneficial. I mean, none of us ever go into a relationship with the view of separating, but some of us just reach the end of that relationship and it's an amicable split and realization that potentially, this has run its course, whereas others lead through a much more turbulent and unpleasant events. And those mums may really struggle with self-doubt and self-esteem. Is there a way they can start to recognize and challenge these feelings in a way that can empower them rather than hold them back?
Most of the times that we've come up with this idea about ourselves, it stemmed from something in the past. So I always encourage my clients to be, well, when was the first time you thought that about yourself? 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, I was told that at the age of 4. And at the age of 4, we believe everything that we're told. We're such a sponge. So then I get them to check in with their human compass to be like, actually, is that what you feel deep in your body? Or do you feel like you could actually be a different person or change the way that you act or do those things? And it's really interesting when you get them to actually tap into, hey, when did they start believing that? Or what instance happened that allowed them to feel like that? And then actually get them to really tap into, what did they think? Because there's so many outside factors, so many outside noise to be out. Actually, what is your internal dialogue telling you? Listen to that. And a lot of times people have turned that off. They've forgotten their voice. They've forgotten who they actually are. So really getting them to connect deep in with themselves to be like, what is your internal dialogue telling you? And what do you actually believe? because that's the only truth.
Often those belief systems are quite old and outdated, and it takes a lot of time and struggle potentially to shift those. Are there any techniques that you use to do that?
A lot of the techniques that I have used are quite deep techniques, and a lot of come in from a lot of my NLP coaching and lucidity group, and then deeper. I think it's more, probably the most simplest one is either to paint a picture or to draw a picture or write a picture, whichever is apparent for them, of what their ideal life would look like if they got to choose. If money was no object, if there was no limitations, if there was no limiting beliefs, what would it actually look like? Because they need to see it, they need to believe it, and they need to feel it to then maybe potentially start taking actions towards that. But if they can't see it, then they can't see it. And then they won't be able to see past it. So if they could see something so different to what they are, that's probably the first step. And then you can start researching, then you can start exploring it. But a lot of times, because we don't even give them the permission to actually be like, what do you want? What would it feel like? What would freedom feel like for you? What would the future feel like for you? What would it look like for you? Can you see the picture? Because not everybody can see pictures in their head as well. Some people they don't have that part of their body. That they might be able to write it, or they might be able to draw it. And that's probably the first place I would start, because then they might actually just start thinking a little bit differently because of the glimpse of something different.
That's a great tip. Absolutely allowing yourself. It's basically giving yourself permission to be able to dream of something else.
Correct.
That, imagine something else that you just don't have that you would like, and starting from that, isn't it?
Because that's where everything stems from. People only create something because they've imagined it. It doesn't just come. They've imagined it. They've seen it. It's the same with any invention. They saw the picture. They went and created it. So yeah, definitely just tapping into what else could be possible, because unless you see it, they won't be able to create it.
Love that. That's really simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple, and it's achievable. And as with anything, if it's not easy, we just practice. So the first time you might imagine it just vague images, for example, or vague words, and then come back to it, and down the track, go a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, till it becomes something that is easily achievable. And then you can start doing physical steps towards it. So such a lovely tip there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And finally, what I wanted to ask you is, is there any advice that you'd give to a mum who feels stuck and unsure how to move forward with rebuilding her life or business?
I think there's so much power in community. I mean, there's so many Facebook groups on Facebook. I mean, you've got an amazing Facebook community. Is just reach out. I think that every other mum is always more than happy to jump on a Zoom, have a virtual coffee, go and meet you for a coffee in the cafe, have a glass of wine, just to be like, I just want to speak to somebody that's maybe gone and done it before, or maybe somebody else that feels like they're, struggling or things like that. And it's all just having conversations with like-minded people. And if you're surrounded by people that just aren't kind of that way inclined, is find another community that are okay to be talking about real life things. And it's okay to say that you're not okay, or okay to say that you want something more. There's no guilt or shame to be like, I want more for my life, I want more for my family. So I think definitely just reaching out to the community and just having real conversations. But all the communities that I'm part of, like every other woman is just like, sure, let's just have a call. Let's just have a chat. What's coming up for you? And I think that, as mothers, just this newfound respect and, certainly a big sisterhood in terms of, helping other mothers out, because, it can be difficult, especially when we are on our own, to be able to share those thoughts. So yeah, definitely reach out to community and have conversations.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think that's also you're just bringing up so many valid points there. Like you find even, yes, there are lots of communities out there. And I found initially, for example, and I know other mums that I work with, they'll go into a community and they're there and they're present and they're like, now what? No one's talking to me. And it's like, yeah, but you're the one that needs to say hi.
Yeah.
You are the one. It doesn't have to be a great big spiel about your life. It doesn't have to be a great big story. Just a simple, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what I'm hoping, or just, hi, just to invite, because I can guarantee you, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm here now, what? There's probably another 10 or 20 or 50 women sitting around you doing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
All sitting in a circle looking at each other uncomfortably.
I very much
Virtually.
have a I go first approach.
Yeah.
Because people just want somebody else to go first. So I'm happy to go first for other people, but then I also encourage other people to be like, if you want people to talk, you could also talk. You could be that first person that goes. You could open up the lines of communication. You don't have to wait.
Absolutely. So true. And I love how you've blend, the business, a lot of the business advice and moving forward with your business can be really tied into life in general, whether it's running an entrepreneurship or running your household, all the same principles of, boundaries, of mindset, of, creating your own routine and doing what fits with you. All of that really crosses both boundaries, both spaces.
100%. Business is actually 90% mindset. And there's no point having a business that's skyrocketing, yet your family is falling over. It has to be a cohesive, through work and through your business as well, through your life.
And so if there's any mums that have been listening throughout this time and they would like to get more of your wisdom, is there anywhere that they can head over to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I spend most of my day on Instagram at Sasha Eburne, SASHAEBURNE __. I'm always up for a chat. Drop in, say hi to my DM, see if it's got a voice note. And we also do have a community as well if they want to jump in and get some of those free resources.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the link to that Instagram. And I think I've got a few other little handles of yours, whether it's Facebook and LinkedIn, I believe. So I'll add them to the show notes. But I wanted to say thank you for spending this time with me today and giving some mums a better outcome or a better outlook for the future, rather, and knowing that there is light after burnout and overwhelm. And it doesn't seem to be as hard as I thought it would be.
Sometimes can feel hard in the moment, but the grass is always greener on the other side.
So they say.
Yes.
So they say. All right. Well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you being with us here today. And I look forward to seeing your work in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening, mums. If you found this chat helpful, don't forget to check out our other videos where we dive into more real talk and support for single mums just like you. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode and join our community of strong, inspiring mums building their best lives. See you in the next one.